Monster Hunter Wilds is an expansive, immersive, and challenging game relying on your ability to memorize combos, utilize materials gained from hunts, and playing cooperatively with other players around the world. All of this can be incredibly overwhelming when you first pick up your controller or mouse, which is where I come in. This will be an extensive guide for beginner players who are just landing in the Monster Hunter world for the first time. If you are a new player or a veteran player who wants to leave some knowledge down in the comments for us, then you have come to the right place. Welcome to the beginner's guide for surviving Monster Hunter Wilds. So for those of you guys who get bogged down easily in choices within video games, let me alleviate some of that pressure by giving you tip number 1 for Monster Hunter Wilds. Choose one weapon and stick with it, for each weapon has a different set of moves and combos that will make it unique and fun to play. Every weapon is good, but sticking with one weapon will allow you to get used to the gameplay, weapon moves, and skills that you're going to need to take down monsters easily. If you go back and forth between weapons, it can get quite confusing to memorize all the different combos and frustrating to level up a bunch of weapons rather than just one at a time. This will also ensure that you do the most damage possible as you progress through the game. For me, I chose the bow to stay at range and support my teammates from afar. This allows me to play in a style that suits not only my needs, but the needs of my team when I play with others. Now, tip number 2, in the spirit of staying with the weapons theme, is get acquainted with the training area. This is going to allow you to become familiar with the weapon that you have chosen to fight with, and it is much better to get your combos down in a training area than trying to figure it out in a hunt where you are being attacked constantly. If you practice these combos, get a good feel for your weapon, and become proficient in it before your hunt, you will have a lot less fumbling out in the field when you need to concentrate on hunting the monster rather than what buttons you need to press to do so. Now, when it comes to tip number 3, it could be pretty self-explanatory, but play how you want to. The world is expansive and can take time to get used to. There is no rush. You need to figure out what works for you when it comes to Monster Hunter Wilds. There is a story that you can progress through pretty fast, and after that, it's going to get incredibly overwhelming to see where you have to go next and what you're supposed to be doing. But take your time, do the story at your leisure, and get used to all the mechanics before you worry about what crazy armor you're going to wear, how much damage you're going to be doing at endgame, or even trying to put together a build. So take your time. Now, for tip number 4 is you can never loot enough stuff. Every time you can loot something, I suggest you do it, as it will come in handy in some way or another. Each one of the materials you loot can be used for something to help you on hunts, feed you, craft powerful armor and weapons, or make your overall experience playing Monster Hunter Wilds easier. With deep pockets, I suggest you fill them with as much as you can. Now, tip number 5 is use the quest board early. The quest board is an amazing way to gather materials, get accustomed to different monsters within the game, as well as gain levels for your hunter. Utilize it as much as possible when you start, because it will let you get used to the hunting and gameplay loop of Monster Hunter Wilds. It will be a great way to advance, gather materials, and gain knowledge about the monsters you are hunting. For tip number 6, crafting armor is a great way to get ahead when it comes to your perks, defense, and other stats in Monster Hunter Wilds. However, what you might not know is after you craft your armor, you can also use an armor core to upgrade your armor even further as you progress through the game. This will allow you to take your armor with perks that you enjoy farther into the game than you previously would have if the gear wasn't upgraded. The easiest way I've found to get armor spheres is to do a bunch of bounties that have pretty low grade requirements in order to get them easiest. Tip number 7 is your loadouts. Loadouts can be incredibly beneficial to you as you will find yourself in many different situations as you play. Depending on the monster or area you're hunting in, you could need certain consumables that give you a buff in that area, or will be very helpful in many situations as you hunt, as the game calls for a ton of different items and monsters have a ton of different weaknesses and buffs that can make them either easier or harder for you to hunt. To make a loadout, it's quite simple. You just need to head to your loadouts page in your tent, gather the items, weapons, and gear that you want for that particular loadout for the thing that you're doing, and then save your loadout. At any point, you can come back at any time into your tent and switch back and forth between loadouts for what best fits your needs for that hunt or the free play that you're about to engage in. Now, for tip number 8, don't skip on prep time for your hunts. The preparation before a hunt is almost more important many times than the actual hunt itself. This means checking your loadouts, cooking meals for buffs and defense, upgrading your gear, checking the weaknesses or strengths of the monster that you're hunting, and each one of these things can be done within your tent at a campsite or in your settlement. Once you have taken these steps in ensuring your hunt will be successful, you will find that the hunt and the game as a whole will feel much better, as you will not be healing all the time or clueless about fighting the monster that you are hunting. Now for tip number 9, let's talk about gear for a second. You will find that when you can access the smithy, there is a ton of gear that you can craft right at the beginning of the game. Don't be overwhelmed here, as there's only a few things you need to take into account when looking to craft gear in the early game. If you look right here, you will see different perks that your gear will have for you in the world. Sometimes you'll be able to gather more materials when you mine or when you gather nodes, and other times you will have perks that give you quality of life in the game. Keep an eye on these perks because they can be very beneficial to you at the early game to gather materials as you progress. Also, if you don't take anything from this video, make sure that you are looking at your defense stat on your armor that you are crafting. The defense stat is going to be how you gauge how much damage you are taking from the monsters on your hunt, and the higher defense stat you have, the less damage you are going to take. This may sound self-intuitive, but this may be the most important stat to look at early game to keep you from getting frustrated out in Monster Hunter Wilds. And lastly, for our final tip, tip number 10, explore, explore, explore. There cannot be enough exploration in Monster Hunter Wilds, especially if you are getting to a new area for the first time. Each area will have new items for you to find and gather, as well as new monsters for you to hunt. These new monsters will drop items that allow you to craft better armor and weapons, but you will never find them if you don't spend a decent amount of time hunting them down. My suggestion to you is, as soon as you get into a new area, don't worry about the hunt right away, rather head out into the world on your own and gather a bunch of new materials to get a jump start on the area where you have just entered. This will also let you find campsites where you can strategically rest, cook food, and replenish your gear as needed. But there you have it as you enter Monster Hunter Wilds for the first time, or if you're a veteran of the game, you have 10 beginner tips that are going to help you exponentially as you start out in Monster Hunter Wilds. Like I said, if you are a veteran player, feel free to leave tips down in the comments below, as I'm sure they're going to be very beneficial for everyone who reads them. So without further ado, thank you guys so much for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification on your way out. And until next time, stay safe, enjoy the game, and I'll see you in the next one.